Have you ever been on a wheat farm? If you live in North Dakota, there's a good chance you have, since there are thousands of wheat farms in the state. North Dakota farmers lead our nation in the production of hard red spring wheat and durum wheat each year and rank second in total wheat production. How do I know so much about wheat? My name is Jenny Johnson and I live in a North Dakota farm. Besides, I like to eat bread, pasta, cereals, pretzels, tortillas, and a bunch of other goodies made of wheat. Do you want to know more about wheat too? Well, come with me and you'll discover how farmers grow wheat and how this golden crop becomes the food we love. Meet the kernel. Here is a wheat kernel, or seed. It is enlarged so you can see how complex one kernel is. Kernels are very tiny, even smaller than our fingernails. There are about 50 kernels in a head of wheat and 15,000 to 17,000 kernels in just 1 pound. The large inner portion of the kernel is called the endosperm. It's the part that is ground up to make white flour. So this part right here. The hard outer covering is called the bran, sometimes used in cereals, muffins, and breads. This portion is made of many layers. Finally, the tiniest part of the kernel is the germ. That's this part down at the bottom. It's the part that grows into a new wheat plant if the kernel is planted in soil. Whole wheat flour is made when the whole kernel is ground or milled. Whole wheat flour contains all three parts of the kernel. So this page should answer your questions on the bottom of the first side of the worksheet. Wheat is classy. There are hundreds of varieties of wheat grown in the United States, but they are grouped into 6 classes based on hardness, color, and time of planting. The 6 classes of wheat are hard red spring, hard red winter, hard white, soft red winter, soft white, and durum. Millers and bakers need to know what class of wheat they're using, since each makes a different type of flour and is used in different types of foods. Hard wheats are used to make breads and rolls. The soft wheats are used in cakes, cereal, pastries, and crackers. Durum, the hardest wheat of all, is used in my favorite pasta, macaroni, spaghetti, lasagna, and more. Hard red spring wheat, the wheat highest in protein, can also be blended with other classes of wheats to make all-purpose flour. Sowing the way. North Dakota farmers, like my mom and dad, grow hard red spring and durum wheats. North Dakota farmers raise about 2/3 of all durum and half of all the hard red spring wheat grown in the United States. Because of the cold winters in our state, most wheat is sowed or planted in the spring, April or May, when the soil temperature is warm enough for the wheat to begin to grow or germinate. Long before the wheat can be planted, though, much work needs to be done to prepare the soil. My mom and dad use a field cultivator or chisel plow pulled by a tractor to till the soil. Tillage is similar to hoeing a garden because it breaks the soil into small pieces and kills weeds that grow early in the spring. When the soil is blackened and a proper seedbed has been prepared, my parents plant wheat with a grain drill. The drill opens a furrow in the soil, drops the seeds in at an even depth, covers the seed, and packs the soil. My Uncle Joe prepares and plants his fields in a little different way. He uses a no-till drill that places the wheat seed in the soil without turning the soil over. This method of planting helps prevent the soil from eroding or wearing away. It conserves or saves the soil and its nutrients. Whatever method farmers use, they work hard to fight insects, plant diseases, and weeds in order to provide you and your family with a tasty, safe, and abundant food supply. The moisture or water in the soil is what makes the wheat plant start to grow. At first, the germ, or the growing part of the seed, gets its food from the endosperm. As the wheat grows taller, though, it gets food from the soil and through its roots. The wheat plant's green leaves also make food from the sunshine through a process called photosynthesis. Amber waves. Warm, moist days make the wheat plants grow quickly. They usually grow to be 2 to 4 feet high. A wheat plant has 4 basic parts: head, stem, leaves, and roots. The head is what contains the kernels. The stem supports the head, the leaves conduct photosynthesis, and the roots hold the plant in the soil. Toward the middle of July, green wheat plants turn a rich golden color. You know the song, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain." The song was written because a ripe wheat field is something beautiful to see. The song could have been written about a wheat field in North Dakota. Farmers have to move fast when the wheat is ripe or ready to harvest. While Mother Nature usually cooperates with them, my parents race to harvest the crop because a ripe wheat field can be destroyed by wind, rain, hail, and even fire. Wheat can't be harvested if it's rainy. Wheat needs to be dry to be stored without spoiling. You got the ripe one, baby. How do farmers know when the wheat is just right for harvest? Many farmers take a sample of wheat to the local elevator where the wheat is tested to see if it's dry enough to harvest. Other farmers, like my dad, check their wheat the old-fashioned way. They rub the wheat head in their hands, blow away the chaff or the straw-like outer covering of the kernel, and chew some of the grain. If the kernels are hard and make a gummy substance as they are chewed, the farmers know when the wheat is ready to be cut. Because all of the different climates, wheat doesn't ripen at the same time everywhere in the United States. Harvest begins in May in hot southern states like Texas and Oklahoma, and then moves north as the summer goes along. In North Dakota, harvest usually begins in early August and lasts until mid-September, about the time we start a new school year. Wheat is harvested with a giant machine called a combine. It cuts, separates, and cleans grain all at the same time. Before the combine was invented, my grandparents tell the story of how they had to use two separate machines for harvest, a reaper, or a binder, to cut the grain, and a threshing machine to separate the kernels from the chaff and the stems. The combine is so named because it combines the jobs of both machines. Combines have made wheat harvesting much faster and easier. It used to take 3 whole days to cut and thrash an acre of wheat, a piece of land more than half as large as a football field. Today, though, with a large combine, my parents can harvest an acre in less than 6 minutes. So what exactly does harvesting mean? It means the wheat kernels are removed from the wheat plant and placed into a hopper on the combine. When the hopper gets full, the wheat is unloaded into a truck, which at our farm is usually driven by my older brother or sister. The grain is hauled to a storage bin on the farm or to a grain elevator. To market. The storage bin at the grain elevator sometimes looks like a giant white silo, but in North Dakota, it is usually a large silver building. The grain is emptied into a pit and then gets raised or elevated into one of the tall bins. In my hometown of Wheaton, like many others, the grain elevator is the only skyscraper around. At the elevator, each load of wheat is sampled and graded for quality. The price a farmer gets for the wheat depends on its grade. Just like some of my friends' allowances depend on the grades they get for school. The better the grade, the more money the farmer receives. From the elevator, the wheat is sent by train or truck to a mill where it's ground to make flour for our food. The type of flour produced depends on what type of wheat it was made from. It's magic. Nothing tastes as good as a slice of fresh bread right out of the oven. It's soft, fluffy, and chewy good. Flour can be made from other grains like rye, oats, and barley. Wheat flour is used most often in baking because it contains a magical protein called gluten. Some other grains have gluten too, but not as much as wheat. I'll show you how gluten works, but first you need to know about another ingredient in bread called yeast. Yeast is what makes bread rise or increase in size. When yeast is mixed with warm water and flour to make bread dough, the yeast gets active and makes thousands of tiny air bubbles. These bubbles need to be trapped in the dough so it will rise and become light. That's where the gluten comes in. Gluten is stretchy, sort of like bubble gum. The gluten traps air bubbles from the yeast and keeps them in the dough. All the tiny holes in the slice of bread were formed by tiny little gluten bubbles. Since other grains don't have as much gluten as wheat, bread made from other grains is heavier. Therefore, wheat flour is usually combined with other flours to make rye, pumpernickel, barley, and other multi-grain breads. Lots of pasta. While hard red spring wheat is used to make breads, durum wheat is used to make pasta. Pasta is from the Italian word for paste, meaning a combination of flour and wheat. It's used to describe the 600 shapes of and sizes of pasta products made from durum wheat. Before durum can be used in foods, it must be milled into semolina, a coarsely ground endosperm of a durum wheat kernel. At a processing plant, semolina and water are mixed to make pasta dough. The dough is kneaded and then forced through dies or metal discs with holes to create many pasta shapes. The size and shape of the holes in the dies determines the shape of the pasta. That's how pasta can take the form of flat ribbons, bows, seashells, twists, tubes, rings, stars, and many other shapes that make eating noodles oodles of fun. After being forced through the dies, the wet pasta is drained in special machines, packaged, and sent off to a grocery store where you and your family buy the pasta to make your favorite meals. The Energizer. Do you see the plate divided into sections above? The plate reminds us of the kinds of foods and how much of each we should eat. Some sections of the plate are bigger than others to show that you should eat more foods from these groups and fewer foods from the groups in the smaller sections. The grain and vegetable groups are the largest. The part of the plate on the upper right is for the grain group. Nope, we're not going to color the section. Wheat is the most common grain eaten in the United States. Other common grains include barley, oats, corn, and rice. We need to include grains in our diet for the energy and other nutrients that they provide. Wheat foods provide complex carbohydrates that give our bodies energy to run, play, and work. Complex carbohydrates help our thinking brains so we can get good grades in school. Fiber in wheat foods helps our digestive system moving on schedule. Wheat also has B vitamins and iron that our bodies use to turn food into energy, muscles, and other healthy nerves. Athletes eat a lot of wheat products for these reasons. They know that wheat foods give them energy without many calories. Next is the vegetable section on the bottom left side of the plate. Some kids don't eat enough vegetables. It is important to eat dark green and orange vegetables. I like broccoli, carrots, spinach, and sweet potatoes. Then in the upper left of the plate is the red section for fruits. I always put fresh fruit in my backpack and eat a piece of fruit as a snack every day. Dried, frozen, and canned fruits are great too. The circle next to the plate is for the dairy group. Dairy foods are made from milk, which include yogurt and cheese. Calcium from milk is important for building strong bones and teeth. The last section of the plate on the bottom right is for protein. Protein section is purple. Lean beef, pork, chicken, turkey, fish, nuts, beans, peanut butter, and eggs are all from this group. They provide iron and protein, which is important in building muscles. Now that your plate has all of the different colors remind us to eat different foods from all of the food groups. So now come back up to the section up here. Some foods have larger sections on the plate. That shows us that we need to eat these food groups most often. Foods with added sugar and fat should be eaten less often. Candy, chips, and soda are for eating once in a while in small amounts as long as we exercise. For example, in the grains group, pasta is a healthy, low-fat choice. Cakes, cookies, pies, and donuts are also in the grain group, but are high in fat and added sugar. These foods are for special occasions. Then you run up and down the stairs a bunch of times or find another fun way to exercise to burn off all of those calories.